Hello, welcome to this episode of Live from the Hombre Cave. Hope you guys are having a great week so far. Happy Tuesday, right? Tuesday night. Well, as you guys know, yesterday kicked off our first episode of Mezcal Mondays on the Tequila Hombre channel. And so we're going to start doing the Live from the Hombre Cave featuring agave spirits and stuff here as well. So that's what we're doing. If you guys didn't see the review, the first brand that I reviewed is called De Matachines, and it was good. It was really good. There was two different expressions that I tasted. One was called Agualuco, and the other one was called a Peñasco. And I gave the Agualuco a 4 agave rating, which is really good, which means I recommend it. And I gave the Peñasco a 5 agave rating because that one's really different. And I really spent some more time with it now too. And I like mezcals. I like agave spirits that challenge your palate. And this one really does that because it really has opened up and has changed since I did the reviews. There's some other flavors that are coming through. Like I really get this interesting chocolate note that comes through, like a bittersweet chocolate note that comes through on it that I really like mixed in with the agave and all that other stuff. So it's actually really good. So I'm looking forward to, we have a special guest today that we're going to bring on in just a second. Let's check in with our subscribers first. Looking forward to this one. Should be a good night. Drinking a bottle of El Tesoro Blanco from Brian. You're drinking the whole bottle tonight? Really? A whole bottle? Hey, what's up, GCS Guitar? Bienvenido, welcome. Glad you can make it. Buenas noches, enjoying Ray Sol this evening. Tasty taste. Okay, good. Yep, Ray Sol's good. SM says, Viva Matachines. Yes, Viva Matachines. I hope everyone's, hope everybody's having a great evening. Damn, Brian, the whole, yeah, I know, that's what I said, the whole bottle. Winfred says, hello, sipping on G4 Aging Project. Nice. The aging projects are always great with the staves and stuff. Johnny Soto says, hey, hola, good evening, Mark. Good evening, Johnny. Bienvenido, welcome. Glad you can make it here tonight to the special night. All right, without further ado, guys, let's bring on our special guest. Please welcome to the show my good friend, Darian. Darian, how are you?
Hello, everybody.
Darian,
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Anytime I'm drinking a good agave spirit and talking to a friend, I'm always great. Now, there you go. You got yours going. So just for you guys, just so you guys know, Darian is the owner of the De Matachines. It's a brand new brand that he created. I've known Darian for 3 years, maybe, right? Around 3 years?
Yeah, it's been about 3 years.
And I remember when you first talked to me about this project like 2 years ago or so, which I thought's great. And so it's great that it's finally come to fruition. But I want to share with everybody here kind of your journey and what motivated you to create your own brand and where you came from. And do you mind sharing that with everybody?
Sure. So like many people that end up doing one business, they started out somewhere else. So I had a long career in a totally unrelated field here in Chicago. About 12 years ago or so, I got into travel. And I specialized in travel throughout Latin America, specifically Central America, South America, some Mexico. But I'm a big food and drink guy. And what I did is I came up with, back in about 2018, I came up with the idea of doing tours to Mexico under the brand name of Spirited Mexico, where the tours were focused not on food and drink, but on drink and food. So the idea was you go in there and learn about various beverages, be they distilled spirits, wine, beer, pulque, juices, whatever it is. Got that project going in 2018, 2019. I rolled it out in early 2020. And then I'm not quite sure what happened about 3 years ago, but something happened where the travel business kind of shut down for a while.
COVID?
Yeah. So I had spent a long time fomenting these relationships with different agave spirits producers in Mexico, in various parts of Mexico. My first exposure to agave spirits was, like probably everybody else, tequila decades ago. I was a big tequila enjoyer, appreciator, fan, like you and like many other people here. And then I got into mezcal really in about 2016 when I visited San Luis Potosi. My first kind of in-depth dive into agave spirits, hardcore heritage and production and technique was actually there rather than Oaxaca or Jalisco, where most people get into it. So I had a little bias towards that area coming into it. And one of my tours was featured in the state of San Luis Potosi, visiting various producers there. They're not as well known as they're not as well known in the U.S. as the producers in a lot of other states, specifically Oaxaca, but other states as well. So I had built up these great relationships with these people. We were going to feature them on our tours. Pandemic hit, and I kind of wanted to come up with a way to keep working with these people, not knowing if I was going to send visitors to Mexico in 3 months or 3 years or 10 years or what. So I came up with the idea of trying to import some of their spirits into the United States. Like any new field where you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you don't know, a couple of fits and starts, but 2.5 years later, here we are.
All right, so let me ask you a quick question.
My product landed in the United States in October of 2022. I'm currently available in Illinois and in California, and looking for distribution in other states through 2023.
Very good. And of course, you can pick it up if you guys are interested. We do carry it on fermented still. We picked up a case of each to support the brand and to give it access to those viewers and stuff that wanted it. So quick question for you, Darian. When you first started trying these new spirits that you were exploring in Mexico, was it an instant love for you, or was it something that took some acclimating to, or how was your transition from tequila to mezcal or other agave spirits? How did that happen?
I would say it was pretty instantaneous for one big reason. Most tequilas commercially available in the United States are generally lower ABV. I came into this space with more of a bourbon and whiskey angle to it. So I kind of craved higher proof spirits.
Okay.
And I found it a lot easier to find those things in the mezcal and other agave spirits arenas than in tequila. Having said that, I understand that today there are a lot of higher proof tequilas available, but even 5-6 years ago, it was tough.
Yeah, pretty much most mezcals. I mean, in order for it to really be considered a legitimate mezcal, it's got to be really pushed above 40% ABV. Otherwise it's like people think, why bother? Because it just dilutes down the beautiful wild agave that they're using, or the agave species
right.
that they're using versus something that's farmed like Espadin or Weber Blue Agave.
Right. I do think, though, that you'll find in some parts of Mexico really unique lower ABV spirits. As an example, in San Luis Potosi, where my spirits come from, some version of these are sold at like 37-38% alcohol. Now, they're really good. I prefer them higher proof. But there's a lot of value there, and the Mexican domestic market seems to be scared off by things higher than 40. And to get even deeper into it, there are parts of Guanajuato, which is the state just south of San Luis Potosi, where they drink something that you referred to the other day in your mezcal little talk as vino de mezcal. Mm-hmm. Where they drink it at 28%.
Oh, wow.
It's not for me. There's a lot of people that really like it. And that's how they do it there. And specifically at the facilities where they produce it, that's actually how the folks that work there drink it.
Yeah, I understand the current Vino de Mezcal. In the old days, Mezcal was called Vino de Mezcal.
Right.
And tequila was called Vino de Mezcal, but it was like, this would be called Vino de Mezcal de San Luis Potosi, you know, where tequila was Vino de Mezcal de Tequila.
Right.
But what I understand what they're doing now, though, is they're making the wine with the mustard stuff, and then they're actually fortifying it with distilled spirits and drinking it that way as a fortified wine versus a straight 28% wine. That's what I understood from the research that I did on it.
I'm unfamiliar with that, but I'm sure they're doing it in other parts of Mexico. I'm familiar specifically, as I'm saying, with Guanajuato and San Luis Potosi, where I know what they do is they distill it to a certain proof and they water it down.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah.
But then again, when you get in the mezcal, as I'm sure you find and other people find, you know, you just simply you look on the horizon. There's a hill. You cross that hill, and everything's different. The culture of it changes. The process changes. The flavors change, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Right. So you selected. I mean, they're doing a Salmiana, right, for this, which San Luis Potosi is known for their Salmiana.
Right. So Salmiana is the endemic agave in that part of Mexico, and by that part of Mexico, I mean San Luis Potosi, Guanajuato, Zacatecas. That's kind of it's the southern end of the Sonoran Desert. So it's basically the same desert that you have from Phoenix all the way down to San Luis Potosi. It's very high altitude. It's about 5.5, 6 to 6.5 thousand feet, depending on where you are above sea level. Salmiana is super hardy, super strong agave. If you've seen fields of Blue Weber or Espadin, they're almost delicate. They're maybe 3-4 feet tall, maybe a little bit bigger. A lot of these long, thin, pretty needles, or pencas rather, the leaves growing out. Salmiana agave are 10 feet tall or bigger, 10 to 15 feet across, and they're just big.
And how long do they take to mature?
Usually 12 to 15 years, depending on the exact altitude and where you are. Some will be a little more, some will be a little less. There are some folks that are starting to cultivate them. Generally, my two spirits and most spirits you're going to find from there are usually wild grown. But unlike Oaxaca, where you have a wide variety of agave, in these states, about 98% of all agave is Salmiana. And it's the only thing they make spirits out of it.
Awesome. So how did you go about selecting your Mezcalero or Agavelero?
Yeah. So I have some friends in San Luis Potosi that I worked with in getting my brand started. My first visit to San Luis Potosi, which was back in 2016, I visited a couple producers, one of which really struck me as being incredibly amazing. That's the folks that make Peñasco, which is my red label brand. This is in clay pot stills. The other producer in the municipality of Ahualulco is a bigger, better known local producer. I met them through friends. They're a bit different process, more of a traditional process with the tequila style steam ovens. And they're kind of a bigger scale producer. Whereas the Peñasco, the clay pot, is very small scale.
So it's more of almost like a more industrialized process for the Ahualulco and more of an ancestral process for the Peñasco.
I would put it this way. If you're familiar with tequila producers and the size of their facilities and the volume they do, the folks in Ahualulco are probably the equivalent to a small tequila producer which makes them a pretty big mezcal or agave spirit producer.
Right. Yeah.
The folks at Penasco are really small scale, batches of 150, 200 liters at a time. And most of the other producers in that area are similarly small scale.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, love the flavor profile on the Penasco. It's really different, which is what I like. And I've had Salmianas before. I've had some of the other brands that produce out of San Luis Potosi, but I actually think I'm always looking for mezcals that I could recommend to introduce to people that want to come from tequila into agave, into a different agave spirit, into mezcal. And so I always look for something that's not too different, where there has to be an adjustment on their palate and stuff. And I found that the Ahualuco is definitely a great choice for that, because I know typically when people contact me and ask me about, hey, do you have a good mezcal that I could try, that they may say, hey, I've tried a brand where it tasted like licking a rubber tire, or it tasted too much like a smoky barbecue, and I'm not into those flavors. And so I have to try to tell them that not every mezcal tastes like that, or every other agave spirit that's produced in a small fashion like that it has the smoke. It's typically the ones that do have a lot of processes that are flawed. Normally the agave is the king on them. You'll taste the agave and maybe a little bit of smoke in the background. It's not overly smoky. And so I always try to refer them to something that isn't going to kick off their smoke alarm and turn them off, and allow them to experience something different than Weber Blue. Because like with my wine comparison, there's different varietals of agave, just like there's different varietals of grapes to make wine. And you may not like a Chardonnay, but you may love a Cab Franc, right? So this is the same type of thing, where you may not like an Espadin, but you may love a Salmiana, and so you can try all these different agaves and see which one kind of fits the bill for what you're looking for. But I think
I really appreciate you bringing that up, and I think you're really onto something. It never really occurred to me. That was never part of my thought process. But I'm gonna steal this little bit from you.
Okay.
Where the Ahualuco Salmiana spirit I have is going to be much more accessible to tequila drinkers, especially tequila drinkers who are big fans of blancos. And you and I spoke about this before, but I think it has to do with the cooking process. Whereas, as opposed to your traditional Oaxacan earthen pit, where to put it into one sentence, you're burying a bunch of agave in the ground with wood and cooking it and digging it up. This is cooked in a tequila-style steam oven. One of these big, 15-foot tall brick ovens with a cone at the top. And then they run not fire but steam underneath. The Penasco is cooked a little differently, but the Ahualuco, I think you're really onto something there, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it definitely has a really nice sweet cinnamon agave flavor to it, which is right along the same flavor profile of what you'll find in a really good Blanco. But I find it to be a little richer than a Weber Blue agave. In that cinnamon notes, it's more of a rich, sweet cinnamon, and a little bit of fruit and stuff mixed in there too, and a little bit of salinity. But it was really kind of just well balanced and super easy to sip and drink. And of course, it is higher ABV, so you feel you feel the effects of it after a little bit, which is good too.
I was going to point that out, that the Ahualuco is at 49%.
Yeah.
And I deliberately picked that level. They offer it at several different proofs, as high as mid to high 50s. I think much above 50, the strong alcohol really starts overtaking the great Salmiana flavor. So I thought this was kind of the perfect way to do it. But yeah, it's certainly 49%. You don't find many tequilas at that level. You'll find some at like 48, some at 50. There's a couple I know out there at 55 that I love. But yeah, it definitely is a step up for a traditional tequila drinker.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then looking at the Penasco, I mean, one of the things I liked about that is that once you kind of enjoy the Abaluco, I think that you could probably step into the Penasco after that. And just understanding though that it's going to be a different flavor profile, a little more complex and a lot more to it. I really enjoy the chocolate note that I'm getting through for it right now, like a bittersweet chocolate, but it also has this really interesting flavor note in there as well, kind of a sour note that's coming through on it. And it reminds me, as a home brewer, of somebody when we used to drink some of the Belgian Trappist, the sour beers.
Right.
They'd have this tart sour note that was in them, and this kind of triggers that same remembrance for me in my memory from drinking Belgian Trappist, the wild Trappist sour beers, which I like that a lot too. I like that kind of mixed in with everything. It's really different, but super enjoyable. And this one is like, for me, it's something I could just sit and contemplate and think about, and I could still even enjoy a good cigar with that as well. But I could just sit and contemplate and say, okay, what am I tasting now? And it's, the more I drink it, the more it's changing too, which is always kind of fun and adventurous as well.
Right. I would say with the Penasco, the biggest difference is, to point out some of the production and technical differences. Number one, the oven, it's a same style oven, but as opposed to steam underneath, there's actually wood fire underneath. So you get a little bit smoke in there. It's not overly smoky, but you get some smoke in there from that. Number two, the fermentation is in pine vats, which probably gives something to it. I'm not an expert on fermentation and the science behind it, but my understanding is that the yeasts they use will often be a huge contributor to the flavor profile of whatever spirit you're drinking. And when they're fermenting at Penasco, they use sour pulque as a starter.
Oh, okay.
Which makes perfect sense.
Well, I'm getting that sour note.
Where you're getting that Trappist sour ale thing.
Yeah, okay.
And then, of course, the biggest difference, I think, in the production technique is the Penasco is made in what we call a clay pot still, or a traditional Filipino or Mongolian style still, which, for those that don't know, is literally a big clay pot with a smaller clay pot placed on top of it and a condensation plate on the inside. So it's an internal capture still rather than a usual, like a column still or a traditional Oaxacan or tequila style still, where there's a big coil and condenses. It all happens on the inside in one piece.
So it doesn't have the wood slats that come down the side of it too, or is it not inside the wooden?
No. This particular facility, it's just a clay pot, and again, specifically at Penasco, the clay pots are actually kind of somewhat submerged into the ground on a raised platform, and you have the fire underneath.
Okay.
I'm being very graphic here.
It's like an adobe structure where they build the fire underneath the pot that's built into above, on the top part of the adobe structure.
Right, yeah. Basically.
And then they put another unit on top of that where the steam comes up, condensates, and then comes out of a spigot on the top of it, or a spout, after it cools.
Right. There's a clay or a copper plate on the inside, and a little tube running out the side of it. And
they run cold water into that copper plate to keep it cool, and so it condensates and then comes out of the runoff inside the still.
Correct. And that water has to be kept cold, so when they start the distillation, this is something I think a lot of people don't know, is that when you start the distillation on this kind of a still, it's a very inefficient process.
Yeah.
You get your net juice per pound of agave coming in is a lot lower than you get in a more sophisticated industrial modern still. I think the flavors are more concentrated. But what they have to do is they have to keep changing the water on this thing. So, and when they do it, the entire process runs anywhere from 30 to 40 hours straight. So when they light that fire and start going, you're not going anywhere for a whole day and a half. And that's why they need a whole crew of guys to monitor the process, because somebody's got to go take a nap for a few hours. You got to run to the bathroom, or you got to take your kid to school or whatever, you know.
Are they pumping the water out of a local well, or are they pumping the water out of a local well or a stream, or how are they sourcing the water for the still?
The water is local well water.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that's cool. And did you sit through your distillation with them, or hang out and drink mezcal? And
I've never sat there for the full 36 hours. One of the tours that I was offering when I was doing these tours, and hope to offer it again, was at a producer in San Luis Potosí, where the entire tour was based on, we called it a glamping experience, where you go out in the country and you set up a tent and you've got a cot inside there, and you're there for 2 full days while they distill. So if you want to stay up all night and drink with the guys and manage the fire and do the process, you can do it. If you want to go take a nap, you go take a nap.
Nice.
But it's a very intense process, and it's not physically easy. It's a difficult job.
I can imagine. And then you always have to keep an eye on the fire too, right? You always have to keep the fire going.
Right, you've got to keep the fire going, and with the Aqualuco, it's steam, so it's pressurized. It's fairly easy to maintain a certain temperature or pressure. With the Peñasco, it's mesquite wood. They'll actually use the bagasso, some of the dried remnants from the crush, as a starter. It's just like fiber. It's like a kindling. And then they'll feed some of the big agave leaves into there to get it going more, and then they use local mesquite wood. So you're literally running a fire pit for 30 to 40 hours. And what's even more demanding is you have to keep it at a certain temperature and the fire raging a certain way.
So I know a lot of people are interested in the whole sustainability aspect too, with not only agave but also sourcing the wood, because they don't want deforestation happening while these guys are chopping down trees to run their fires and stuff. Are they doing anything along the lines of planting trees and stuff to help sustain the growth of the wood, as well as you already said that they're starting to cultivate the Salmiana, so that's a good thing there for sustainability.
Right. So I'll speak to several aspects of the sustainability question. The agave itself, unlike Blue Weber or Espadín specifically, some other varieties maybe in Oaxaca, they're still able to harvest most of it wild. They're starting to cultivate it. So they're it's bat friendly. They grow in the wild. You drive through this part of San Luis Potosí, and some areas you'll just see all the coyotes sticking up, and it's really beautiful. So that's not an issue right now. I'm not a well-versed enough scientist or botanist to comment on that, but I can see where if production keeps growing in that area, it would eventually be an issue. Water is an issue everywhere in Mexico. It's, there's no other way to put it. It's a very dry country, specifically at the high altitudes here. They're able to access it for now. Long term, I worry that it could be an issue. With the wood specifically, at Peñasco, they will purchase from local foresters and local places that do engage in some form of sustainability practices, where, every tree they cut, the plant a tree, things like that. In Ahualuco, it's a little different where it's steam cooked. So they don't necessarily need wood to do it. They can fire it by gas, they can fire it electrically, heat the water up. They have these big boilers, you heat the water up, it creates steam, comes up and cooks it. I think the sustainability point is an excellent question, both for my brand specifically, but also for a lot of other brands. My concern, what I see as an issue, is bananas. Every banana you eat in the world today is a Cavendish banana that's a clone of one banana tree 100 years ago. Mm. And what's happening with these big Espadine farms, big Blue Weber farms, is a lot of them are growing by clone.
Yeah. But Willows are they're not planting by seed.
Yeah. And here's the thing. As long as you can keep it going, it works great. But like with bananas, every 75 or 80 years, you get a blight. Some
disease,
little bug comes in, and it destroys everybody's crops.
Yeah, that's what the BAT project's all about, the biodiversity of agave,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, we always donate a portion of our profits from Ferment and Still to David Suro's BAT project to help with the sustainability projects, and letting 5% of your crop go to Quixote so you can get seeds that are more biodiverse instead of planting from the babies, or the ihuelos as they're called.
Right. I want to shout out here quickly while you're mentioning not-for-profit in Mexico. My friend Lou Bank in Chicago runs an organization called Sacred, Saving Agave for Recreational, Creative, Educational, and Developmental, I think. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the exact anagram, what it means. But I've worked with him. Part of my profits go to his organization. And he works throughout Mexico with various sustainability and other community projects. I think he works mostly in Oaxaca, but look at his website and tell you where he works.
Yeah, I know Lou's a good guy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation so far. Let's open it up for some questions from some of our viewers and see what they want to ask you and stuff. So,
and drink some good stuff.
Yeah, let's. I've got mine. I just poured some more while you were talking. So, Tony Manzo popped in. He said, "Hola, hombre, hola." Quicksilver says, "Finally made it live." What's up, guy? Hey, what's up, Quicksilver? Glad you can make it. Jan wants to know, do they sell those T-shirts in 4XL?
So, that's an excellent question. You can't tell by this video, but I'm 6'4" and somewhere over 200 pounds. So my T-shirt here is a 2XL. It's a little big on me. An XL is just a tiny bit tight. I do not sell them, but if you reach out to Mark and connect us, I can get you set up with a shirt.
Oh, there you go. All right, perfect. I'd love one too.
Of course.
All right, so Beyond Barrels wants to, do they add more water to get the proof low? No, he said they add water, they dilute it down. He's talking about the Vino de Mezcal you were talking about.
Right. Different producers will produce to different proofs. They're all double distilled. Generally, the Salmiana, after 2 distillations, if it's done right, you're somewhere in the mid-50s ABV after the second distillation. To get to the Vino de Mezcal, obviously they water it down. To get to my Ahualuco product of 49%, they do water it down a little bit. The Peñasco, which has a much richer flavor but is 47.9%, that is still strength.
Oh, that's distilled at strength. Okay.
And that is really hard to predict and do because the process is so inefficient and in some ways unpredictable. You could end up at 46. You could end up at 53. You could end up at 47.9. You kind of get what you get.
Yeah. All right, so Osito Freitas wants to know, how did you meet Manuelito de Jesus Olivia, as he has been known for years as a wizard with Salmiana and SLP?
So he is one of the managers of production at the facility where I'm sourcing my mezcal. They work a little differently than a lot of other mezcal and spirits producers, say specifically in Oaxaca, where you have one mezcalero or one palenquero who really is tightly in control of the entire process. In Ahualulco, where they make this, it's much more of a community effort. And there are actually a couple of different people involved in the process. In discussions with my producer, we chose to use this gentleman's name. He's I believe his title in Spanish is like Jefe de Producción or something. I honestly can't remember. But he's the gentleman we chose to represent this brand and to represent this process. It's a very delicate question because it's really a communal effort, and you need as a brand owner here and as somebody who doesn't live in the community and work there, it's easy to say, well, I need one name. Who's the guy in charge? Who does it?
Right. But you want to respect
that's
everybody.
That's not how they work and how they think.
You want to respect everybody that's involved in the process, not...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Well, he also wants to know...
that answers the question.
Yeah. He says, do you plan on further releases from other maestros? Is there other people in San Luis Potosi as well as other states that you want to source from? And
well, that's an excellent question. My brand started in San Luis Potosi because that's what I was familiar with, and I thought it was a spirit that's very underrepresented here, and I wanted to share it because I think it's really good. There are a few other producers in San Luis Potosi that we are hoping to work with in the near future. Additionally, and of interest, I'm sure to some of you that are fans of drinking in general, I'm not at liberty to give any more specific details at this time, but in 2023, we plan on offering at least one, if not two, non-agave spirits from San Luis Potosi. Made by people with experience in mezcal. It could be a whiskey, it could be a gin, it could be a rum. I'm not going to say a whole lot more because we're all in the process. But if you could make it to the Mexico in a Bottle event in Chicago in April, end of April of this year, I'll be rolling out at least one new product at that point. Again, not an agave spirit specifically, but something really, really good from San Luis Potosi.
Oh, nice. He also wants to know, have you considered doing a pechuga with an ancestral process with barro de olla?
The one-word answer is yes, I've considered it. The little longer answer is that tradition is not as prevalent in this part of Mexico as it is in Oaxaca and like maybe Michoacan or Jalisco, other parts of Mexico. Having said that, there are a couple of producers in San Luis Potosi doing various pechuga or pechuga-like processes, not always with a protein, often with a fruit or a local herb.
So it's kind of like a gin-esque kind of pechuga if they're using the herbs, right? More of like a botanicals, and then the other one's more of a vegan or vegetable or fruit pechuga.
Right. They will make. There's one producer that I know of in San Luis Potosi that has made what they call pechuga de raton. So it's not a rat. It's basically this form of like a desert chipmunk or something. So they made a pechuga with that once. I've seen pechugas in other parts of Mexico they make with snake.
Viper, yeah. We have the coyote vipora.
Not like added after the fact, but the meat is added just like you would with a chicken breast or a turkey in the pechuga.
Yeah,
they put snakes in there.
They used to hang the viper in the still, a dead snake.
Exactly.
Just for those of you that don't know what pechugas are, because there's some tequila people here that haven't explored outside into the other agave spirits world. A pechuga is typically they put something in the still for distillation. For those of you that have tried the La Luna Tequiliana, it's got pomegranate in the still, so it's basically like a pomegranate pechuga. But pechuga means breast in Spanish, and so they typically before we would use a protein like a chicken breast or a goat or lamb or something like that in there, but they've ventured off now for people that are vegans and don't want animals used or worried about animal cruelty and stuff like that. They're using fruits, they use insects, they use snakes, they use all kinds of things in them now. They get pretty creative now with what they put in the still for distillation. And for those of you too that know Vago, they did an elote where they put corn, roasted corn in the still. So those are the kind of things they can do to flavor the distillate as it's coming out and add additional nuances and stuff to it. So that's what basically a pechuga is, and people refer to it as a pechuga. How did I do?
I mentioned the Vago elote as well. I'm not here to plug other brands, but I think their elote is a really great kind of gateway into the world of pechugas. I
think so. It's very good. Absolutely, yeah. So I'll answer this one for him. Novice question: are mezcals regulated like tequilas? Yes, they are. In order for you to call it mezcal, it has to be registered and certified by the CRM, which is the same as like the CRT for tequila. Except if you notice on the bottles, and when I talk about the De Matachines, it is actually an agave spirit. So they opted not to get certified through the CRM because there's a lot of politics and stuff that happens with that. And so if you don't get certified through the CRM and don't want to deal with the certification process and having to submit every batch through the CRM and pay the taxes and stuff on it, you can opt to go as a destilado de agave or agave spirit, and you don't have to do that if you do that. And so that's what they did here. It is in the DO for mezcal, so if they wanted to certify it and and run it through the CRM, they could, and this could be called the mezcal, but they just opted not to do it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Both of these would easily be certifiable as a mezcal if we chose to do it. For a variety of reasons, we choose not to. Overall, I think it's a good idea that they have a DO. We can quibble with specifics of how it's run in tequila or mezcal or bacanora or sotol or other spirits. For the purposes of my brand and what I'm trying to do, I didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah. And some of the benefits of doing that, having the CRM as well as the CRT, is that, they can make sure that the rules are followed. Like with mezcals, you're not allowed to put any additives in it without putting it on the bottle. It has to be listed on the bottle. So you actually have an organization that can monitor that to make sure there is not any additives or anything in the mezcal besides what's listed on the label. So if you ever see a bottle that says avocado on it, that tells you that stuff was added to it, and it'll normally list everything that was added to it under avocado. There's no avocado on this because nothing was added to these. These are just pure agave spirits.
Can I make a quick point here, because I saw you holding a bottle up like this?
Yes.
For those of you that have not actually seen the bottle, this is what it looks like here, and there's a design here. This is a matachine, same as on my t-shirt here. A matachine is a ceremonial dancer. It is a tradition found in rural Mexico, these days primarily in north and central and northern Mexico. And it is a combination of pre-Columbian dancing and music with Catholic religious tradition. Both of my producers in Penasco and Ajolulco, the people involved in the process, making this wonderful spirit, they are all Matachines. So what they do every Sunday afternoon after they go to church and they come home and they have a nice lunch with their families, they go and they practice dancing. And when they have their festivals throughout the year, each of these villages will invite Matachine troops from other villages to come dance and celebrate with them. So the whole idea of using this name was that this is how folks that make this stuff, this is how they celebrate. This is what they do in their time off when they're looking to relax and further their own, culture and heritage. I thought it was a great way to represent that. One little twist here, and shouts out to my graphic designer, Gabe Lanza. If you look at the logo on there, if you have a bottle there, Mark, take a look at it. But towards the bottom of the dancer's dress, there's 4 little stars and then a bar going left to right above each line of stars.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay. Those 4 stars and the 2 bars, that's the flag of Chicago.
Oh.
Which is where I'm based. So I was trying to tie together the heritage of the spirits and the communities that make that, pepper it with a touch of my own little, where I'm at, what I'm about.
Chicago.
There you go.
Nice, cool. I liked it too that you use the this was agave fibers, right, for the labels. Yeah, I like that. I like that it's recycled for the labels. Now,
right. So, again, it's a minor thing, but it's part of the sustainability. I mean, we're using literally the garbage of the process to make something that I think is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So when you create other expressions from other places and stuff, are you going to do it under the De Matachines, or is this going to be exclusively for the San Luis Potosi line? Have you thought about that?
In April.
Okay.
To be determined.
To be determined. Okay. And so these two are going to be staples, though, in your brand going forward. You're going to always have these 2 expressions.
Right. I will always have these 2 expressions offered. I'm not going to name any names, but there are a lot of other brands, I think, similar to what I'd like to be doing, that are small batch from a couple of local producers in various areas. And one thing you realize when you're dealing with these folks is they can't ramp up production to make 500 liters a month, 1,000 liters a month. The way my brand is going to grow is going to be horizontally and not vertically. By that I mean, you look on the back of the label, we have a batch number, and every bottle has a number here.
Yes.
On my Penasco Spirit, there's a total of 235 bottles. So you'll have other batches that are similarly sized, but will never have 5,000 bottles of this out of one batch.
Yeah. Well, and then you, like you said, for like the Penasco, the ABV will be different in every batch too, because you don't know what you're going to get.
Right. And that's why, if you'll notice on the bottle, as I know you noticed during your review the other day, it's handwritten in.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what it's going to be until it gets there. Whereas with my Ajolulco producer, they're a bigger scale, and they're a more, I hesitate to use the word scientific, but they're a more precise process. And I can request a certain ABV, and it comes in right there.
That's awesome. That's good. I'm impressed. I really enjoyed both of the expressions, and I thank you for sharing them with me. And for those people that don't know too, I actually bought these bottles. I didn't, get them for free. We bought the product from them because we want to support the brand. And I actually bought these bottles from my partners because they paid for it. So it's worth a buy, and I mean that because I did spend my money on this. This is not something that was given to me for free, and I would spend my money on it again. I'm gonna enjoy the Penasco a lot. I will enjoy the Agualuco as well, but that was more of just like a casual daytime drinker for me, where the Penasco is going to be more of a contemplating, life, trying to figure out the flavor profiles and what I'm getting at that time, type of expression for me, which I love a good spirit like that. One that baffles your mind and keeps you kind of guessing. So that's
right. I know you're a cigar smoker. I'm no longer a tobacco user. But if I were ever to smoke a cigar again, this is exactly what I'd have it with.
Yeah. It definitely would pair up nicely with some of the cigars I have. And I know I could sit and enjoy this as an after dinner spirit, and with a good cigar at night, just relaxing and going, okay, what am I getting now? I mean, it's really good. So it's expensive, but it's small batch, high proof. So it makes sense with mezcals. Mezcals typically aren't cheap. The good ones, the small batch ones. So, but it's not something too that you're going to sit and drink in one sitting, because if you do, you literally, are going to poison yourself with this much alcohol. It's definitely it's a sipper that you just want to sit and enjoy, and not polish a bottle off in one night. Because if you do that, and you can still speak English, I'd be very surprised.
If anybody wants to do that and invite a few friends over, and you're anywhere within a couple hours drive of Chicago, let me know. I'll come join you.
There you go. What is that? They do pachugas with iguanas in Michoacan. Okay, cool.
Yes.
It says, taking a wild guess that you don't speak Spanish, so do you have a local interpreter to do business and get to know the locals?
Osito, hablo en español poquito. Soy de Estados Unidos, hablo en inglés. Tengo amigos y gente que me ayudan en San Luis Potosí. Yo no tengo confianza en mi español, en mi uso de la lengua para negociar contratos, negociar procesos. So yes, I use a translator to help me. I have some basic Spanish. As I like to say, my restaurant Spanish is excellent. My directional Spanish is almost perfect. My business negotiating skills are growing.
I'm the same way. I don't speak it fluently, not yet. I've been working on it though, but I know enough to get me in trouble and to get by. And most of the time, everyone that I talk to knows that, it's my second language, and they understand that. But they also can get the gist of what I'm saying. And I also have friends there that speak English that can do interpretation if it's needed. But most of the time,
right.
We get by on just, it's just like, any Hispanic person, Mexican person that comes to the United States, when they come and talk to you and put, their paragraphs or their sentences together, they're not going to be speaking the best English with the conjugation of their verbs and stuff correctly, but you get the gist of what they mean, and you can communicate with them still. And it's the same with me, and it sounds like it's the same with Darian when we go to Mexico. And they embrace the fact that we're learning and want to learn, and they're very friendly and stuff about it. I get more flack from Americans about my Spanish pronunciation than I've ever gotten from any of my Mexican friends. Matter of fact, most of them go, "Hey, you're learning very well. You're speaking very good." Where some idiot here in the U.S. decides they need to correct me on something because I went Spanglish on it, which nobody else cared about but them. So,
right, at a certain point, you want to respect local traditions, local languages, local culture and history. as much as you can. But at the end of the day, I think it's more respectful to get somebody who knows what they're doing to get your message across than to try and butcher it yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so I always have somebody with me that speaks Spanish. But a lot of times too, they appreciate the fact that I'm taking the time to learn and I'm studying.
Of course.
And a lot of times I can just look at them and say, okay, so como se dice, and I point to something and they'll help me. They'll say, okay, that's, this, or, because when you say como se dice, it's basically, how do you say? So como se dice en español esto, and you point to it and they go, oh, that's, and they'll tell you, and they'll help you. I mean, and they're, they understand that you're not from Mexico. So, JCS says, good show tonight. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Any other questions for Darian on his brand or on his journey? We'll wrap this up, if not here, because we're pushing 8 o'clock.
10 o'clock here.
10 o'clock in Chi-Town.
I'm going to have to go make sure my kids went to bed.
My daughter's at hockey practice right now, so, and I'm sure in Chicago, hockey, right?
Oh, we do. We just, if you're a hockey fan, they traded Kaner today.
They what?
Kane.
Kane. They traded Kane away?
They traded him to the Rangers.
Oh, wow. Kane's been with the Blackhawks forever.
He's been there his whole career for probably about 10 years.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, my Ducks stink this year, so I haven't even been following hockey. They're just oh my God. I mean, my daughter's 16U AA team could probably beat the Ducks, so. I'm serious.
My daughter's an athlete too. She's not a hockey player. She's a rower, and she's looking to go to college somewhere in Southern California.
Oh, nice.
So I'm sure I'll be out. If she gets in there, I'm sure I'll be out there a lot more.
Well, if you come out, let me know. We'll invite you here to the den, and we can just drink our way through the mezcal selection over here.
It'll be a great week, man.
Yeah. If you can make it through the first night. Not too many people leave the cave standing or walking. It's normally crawling out the door.
I'll bring my own pillow. It's okay.
That's okay. You can sleep on the floor with the dogs. They're good. They won't bite either. So
sounds good.
It's 11 in Philly. Okay, yeah, we do have some people from the East Coast here where it's 11. So all right. You got any other questions for Darian on his brand? How many people sound like it's something that they're interested in trying? If you're interested in trying, say, comment that you're interested. I'd like to see how many people that this is enticed into wanting to try, and maybe we'll select a lucky person to get a sample of this. I'll give a little 2-ounce sample bottle of each to somebody that's interested in trying it. Pick somebody randomly here that pops up, and I'll send them out a 2-bottle sample, one of each, to try and see what they think, and then share too. That's the one caveat, is if I do pick you to receive a little sample bottle of each, sometime when I do a live stream, like tomorrow or not tomorrow, but like after you get it on a live stream, we'd like you to share with everybody your thoughts on it after you tried it, what you thought, and whether it's something that you're interested in picking up, because we all like to hear the feedback. We like to hear what people think about this stuff.
You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Find me there. If you got any questions, just shoot me a message. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. And for those that do want to buy it, of course, Mark has it at Ferment and Still. Highly recommended. In California, there are a few bars and restaurants where I'm available, as well as in Chicago. So if you want to take a little sip first before plunging in, I can point you in the right direction. All
right. Winfred's interested. Jan says, totally awesome show tonight. I actually just put one bottle in my cart on Ferment and Still. There you go. You'll love it. I know I'm familiar with Jan's palate, and I think you'll love it. I think you'll really like it.
Salud, Jan.
And then Quicksilver says, another rabbit hole to go down. So yes, yeah, absolutely another rabbit hole. Yeah, definitely. Scott Henderson says he's interested. JCS says they're interested. All right, so I tell you what, why don't you just randomly select somebody? Can you see the chat on YouTube, Darian?
I got to go on my phone here. Hold on. I'm going to go and I'm going to
select 2 people and we'll send them each a sample set.
All right, I'm trying to find it here. Hold on. I'm sorry, I don't see it here. Pick the second and the fourth person.
The second and the fourth. So the second would be Jan Neeson is the second, and the fourth would be Scott Henderson. So both of you guys email me at mark@thetequilahombre.com your addresses, and we'll send you a sample of each for you guys to try, and let us know what you think. Okay, that's the caveat, is that on a future live stream, after you get it, you have to let us know what you think of them, as I'm sure Darian would be interested. Thank you, EBA 101. Glad you enjoyed the show.
Thanks.
But I'm all about sharing, these spirits and stuff with everybody, and I know some people are hesitant to try it based on me because they think I may be biased, which I'm not. Even though I am Darian's friend, I really do enjoy the spirit. And he knows that I would give him an honest opinion. If I didn't like it, I would tell him. And I know I could still tell him and we would still be friends. So we have that kind of relationship. So so that you two...
someday I'll put something out there that you don't like, trust me.
I hope so, because I like getting stuff every once in a while. Then I just go like, okay, wow, yeah. Because I preach this to everybody, and I'm a big believer in it. Is that when I first try it, if I don't like it, I'll revisit it, right? Give it a week, step away from it, come back, revisit it. Right. And then I do that like 3 times. And after the 3rd time, if it hasn't opened up and changed to the point where I'm going, okay, I don't mind this, I like this, it's done. I give it 3 times and then it's done. But if it doesn't make it past 3 times, then it's most likely horrible. But I've had some really strange stuff that I didn't like at first, but by the 3rd time I was going, this is actually really quite good. It's just extremely different, and you develop the palate for it. And I tell people that with the mezcals in general, with the smoke and stuff, it gets to the point where after you've had your first and then you take a break from it, you come back, you don't even taste the smoke anymore. It's like, it's done. Right. It's in the background. You don't even zone in on it being smoke. It's gone.
Right. I'm going to share with you really quickly before we go. One of the strangest spirits I ever had in my life, I got this summer. My family and I went on a vacation to Iceland. And they produce some spirits there, usually an aquavit or something like that. But I found a distiller there, Floki, Floki, and they make what they call a malt spirit. So it's some kind of malted grain, wheat or barley, I can't remember. But unlike scotches, which are smoked with peat,
mm-hmm.
this is smoked with sheep dung.
Oh.
And here's the thing, man. I don't love it, but this is one of the most interesting things I've ever had in my life.
I can imagine.
It's so bizarre.
Eesh. Sheep dung. Ugh. I would just get sick just thinking that it was smoked with sheep dung. I mean,
when in Rome, what are you going to do?
And of course you're going, oh yeah, it's good. Yeah, you don't want to offend anybody, but you're like,
yeah, exactly. They're like, well, it's okay. I hadn't had any tequila myself for a week when I had it. I'm in Iceland. I'm like, why not?
Yeah. All right, Darian. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and sharing your lovely brand. I love it. I'm a fan, so it'll definitely be sitting on the shelves here in the Hombre Den. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your friendship. So, and I've always have. So, and I'm looking forward to your help putting together the Hombre tour of the mezcal producing region too. So,
absolutely,
we want to come see your producers. So you have to put together a tour for us.
Absolutely. And if anybody out there wants any information or wants to reach out directly, like I said, social media, De Matachines. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I've got a website as well. It's fairly basic. Mark can also put out my email for contact information if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, if anybody wants to get a hold of him, you can just reach out, DM me or whatever, and I'll give you Darian's information. I chat with him all the time. All right, you guys, like I always say, life is too short to drink bad mezcals or agave spirits. So, hey, if you pick up the De Matachines, you'll be in good shape. Salud. Good night, guys.
Salud. Good night.